Okay. Hello.
Hey Laura, how are you?
I'm very good, Kristie. How are you?
Good. I thought we'd share with the audience a little bit about ourselves and maybe why we created this community.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Tell me about you, beautiful.
yes, well, I'm married to you, so that's my present day. But I guess I grew up in the country, so I grew up in Bathurst, and then was really into like art at school, did quite well at HSC art, and then I feel like I was lucky enough to when I moved to Sydney for university, I was lucky enough to move to Newtown. So that's where a lot of creatives are, a lot of creative ideas in people, and although it was very overwhelming when I went from a small town to Newtown, I do appreciate that. That gave me a lot of creative inspiration. In terms of my writing, I think it started by going to I used writing to primarily express myself and work myself out, and then performing my writing happened by just going to a poetry night one day, thinking I wasn't going to do anything, just sit and listen, and I ended up getting up and reading a piece, and I kind of fell in love with it a little bit, and eventually found a good community, which is closed now, but I just fell in love with the spoken word and writing and presenting, and I would like to read more. I'd like to be a bit more on top of different authors and different ideas, and that's a priority for me to kind of get back into reading, but the writing definitely came with where I was living and who I was around, and that was my story into the creative world.
Your origin story?
Yes, my origin story.
Well, my origin story was quite different.
Yes.
I almost had the opposite to you. So I was sort of born into city life, and then moved out not as far west as you. I sort of moved. It was literally the end of Sydney. Like, do you remember those days when we had our like Sydney phone numbers? There was now it's just national, but we were literally just outside. So
you weren't even Sydney phone number.
Sydney area, but over the bridge it was Sydney. So
right.
We were that close.
Yep.
So I grew up there. I'm not creative at all. When I was growing up, it was all maths and science, but I loved reading. So growing up, I was had a lot of challenges. I was in hospital, had a lot of surgeries, had to have a lot of time off school. And every time I got sick, I'd be given a book. So it sort of started with the Babysitter's Club, and I used to read the Babysitter's Club, and I got that much of a collection. I think I ended up with like 100 books. So yeah. I read a lot.
That's like my brother and Goosebumps. Like
yeah, same sort of thing. So yeah, I went like Babysitter's Club, Goosebumps, Bridge to Terabithia, all those sort of growing up through the ages, and then more into like self-help, and because I wanted to be rich and
of course
the best version of myself.
Yes.
So anything that would improve me, I'd read it. I was very I decided that at one point I didn't need university, I could just read books. So I was a reader, but I would never consider myself a writer. In fact, my English teacher, I don't think she ever thought that I'd do anything close to writing.
Oh, if I told my English teacher I did writing now, she wouldn't believe it either.
Yeah.
I didn't like English at school.
No. I sort of...
No.
I guess I developed a lot of my writing skills when I did go to university, when I realised I couldn't just read books.
Yeah.
And I learned how to write persuasively. But then I landed a job, which...
What's your job? Like, what do you do for work?
What do I do for work? So my title is a project officer for the Information Linkages and Capacity Building team for Uniting, who are one of the partners in the community for the NDIS. But I don't like to introduce myself.
That's quite a lot, and
it's a lot,
I don't
and it
think
doesn't really. It doesn't say what I do.
That does not say what you do. What would you define as what you do?
I basically make the community a more inclusive place for people with disabilities.
Yes.
Much more succinct, and it really tells the story of what I do.
Yes.
So in that job, I have to change attitudes and minds and get people to think more about inclusion. So where you'd be a writer, you can tell a story by writing it down and performing it. I tell a story by getting real life examples, whether they're my examples or examples from other people that I've spoken to, and put it into a scenario. Or I just get up and I tell a story. Sometimes I have to write that story down for like a case study or something like that, but I'm very much persuasive in the way I tell a story.
Definitely.
I want to change someone's mind, and mine's very much fact-based, but yours is maybe based in truth, but primarily fiction.
Yes.
So the way we write is very different.
Yeah, but we both have that persuasive. I think I got into writing as it was definitely solitary at first, and it was almost like I was persuading myself or someone else that my experience was like working out my experience and persuading someone that it's valid. So, and then when someone would come up to me and go, I really resonated with that, and then you're like, well, like,
and that's essentially what I try to do too. Like, my experience is very different to most people's experience, but I find a way to resonate with the person that I'm speaking to or writing to, so it makes it universal. And I think we're all doing that as writers, trying to get everyone to understand us. Yeah.
Do you find yourself using like the can you imagine if scenario a lot, or is it?
I find that a little cliche.
Yeah,
can you imagine if? Because it's really hard for people to imagine if. It's more around...
Imagine if you were like in this situation.
Yes, but it's more around finding universal situations and then sort of going, okay, so when you were a child, we all did this. But as a child, I didn't get that opportunity to do this. So instead of saying, can you imagine if you couldn't do this, I bring them into what they did do. First. And then I might be able to change their mind by maybe imagine if you didn't get that opportunity, or imagine if it was different, or I try not to even do imagine, because some people
can't, like, imagine's a very tricky one. Like, it's easy for some people to put them in another person's like situation, and it's hard for other people, and it's comes naturally to some.
Yeah.
I think when I've seen you, like, I was struck by the first time I saw you presenting, I saw it on video, just the way you weaved your stories with, like, and making, like, it was a room full of people who weren't in wheelchairs and were only just learning about disability, and it was the way you weaved your life and your stories in with their experiences. It was a very found it very powerful.
Thank you.
And I can see why, like, you're very, like, you would say you're a storyteller rather than a
writer. Sit
down like me and write a poem.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I'm going to tell you now, I get so infuriated with how amazing you are with your writing process. So I've seen you, inspiration just strike, and you say, I have to write. And you'll sit down and things will be quiet for half an hour. I might go and meditate or...
It was once you fell asleep at the table.
I did. I fell asleep one day.
I wrote and you slept.
Yeah. And you can just write it out and it's perfect first time.
Yeah. There's a problem.
I hate that about you.
I hate editing. I hate looking. I hate rewriting. It's got to be a one hit wonder like thing, but with that comes a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So that means I don't write as often as I don't let myself be that free as often as I wish I could be.
Where I dot point everything. I do ideas, I'll do a brainstorming session. What do I want to get out of this? Dot, 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 dot. And then I'll go refine it and I'll flesh out each little dot. And then I'll go, oh, that's not relevant. So I'll take that out and I'll do that. And then I'll get my colleagues to read it and then they'll make their edits. And then I'll go back and then I'll just about get it to my boss for approval. And then I'll go, oh, no, why did I do that? And then I'll change it again. And I still never feel like it's perfect. But you just smash it out first time. And I'm so envious.
If I get stuck though, you've seen me get stuck and go, no, not happening, not happy. Can't do it, frustrated.
And I've seen you just like screw up the paper. I'm like, there's some great stuff in there. And you just screw it up and throw it away. And
the perfectionism is high. The editing is an interesting one. I get asked all the time how many edits that took or whatever. But no, it's not something I'm comfortable, like, it sort of comes out, and if it comes out, it's good, or I struggle a lot. So, yeah.
Well, we're very different, but I think we complement each other and we learn and grow from each other.
Definitely. That's a good word.